So this is going to be, so welcome everybody. This is going to be day 3 of law of cosines. So this is going to focus on the quiz. And so you may see these exact same problems, you may not, because remember, the quizzes are coming from a bank of questions. So they could be beneficial if you do happen to see them, obviously. But they're all going to be very similar to this. Either way, these problems are similar. They may not be the same numbers, but the concepts are going to be the same. So we know, because it's law of sines, that we're only focusing on law of cosines, but like I've already said, starting tomorrow, we start a new section, and you need to be able to know, is it law of sines or is it law of cosines? And so how do you figure that out? What are some ways? And so I'm going to kind of again review what I'm looking for my law of cosines, even though we already know that these are all going to be a law of cosines. All right, so let's go ahead, let's get started. So this is, what is the approximate angle of T? So we're looking for this angle here in the triangle. And if I look here, I'm given a side, side, side. So if we have an SSS triangle, that's one way to know that it's going to be law of cosines. The other way is by setting up your table of information. What I mean by that is this is your side T, this is your side S, and this is your side U. So I don't know my angle T. That's what we're looking for. I don't know my angle S, and I don't know my angle U. I don't know any of the angles, but I do know that my side T is 4.3. I do know that my side S is 3.9 centimeters, and I do know that my side U is 2.7. So when I look at this, if I can use my law of sine, I would have to have a full set. So I'd have to have the angle and the side. So just from the table of information, I can identify if it's law of sine or law of cosine. So again, I don't have a full set, so I also know just from looking at my table of information that we have to use our law of cosine. So two different ways to determine it: by identifying the type of triangle you're given, by looking at your table of information. All right, so if I'm going to go ahead and I want to solve for angle T, I'm going to use the equation cosine of T is equal to S squared plus U squared minus my T squared all over 2SU. So remember, when we talk about this equation, we have to try to match it up. My one that's subtracted is always going to be the one to match the angle we're looking for. So I'm going to fill in everything I know. Cosine of angle T is equal to 3.9 squared plus 2.7 squared minus 4.3 squared all over 2 times 3.9 times my 2.7. You can put this all in your calculator one piece, but that's a lot often where you guys make the mistakes. So I would recommend, let's see if we can get this to show up. So I would recommend doing it piece by piece. I do like the numerator and the denominator when I say piece by piece. So I did 3.9 squared plus 2.7 squared minus 4.3 squared is going to equal 4.01 all over. And then I would do 2 times 3.9 times, oops, my 2.7. Let's see if I could type this in right, times my 2.7, and it's going to be 2106. So again, we're looking for the angle, so that means that I need to do the inverse. I need to take the inverse of this whole piece. So if I want to know what T is, then T is going to be approximately, so I do cosine, so I do shift cosine on my calculator, and I do 4.01 divided by 21.06, and you can see it's going to be 79.0. I look at my answers. Oh, look, they're just to the whole number, so it's going to be approximately 79 degrees, and there we go. So make sure you pay attention to what angle you're looking for, because I bet you these answers could be one of the other angles. So just because you got the right answer, make sure that you're paying attention to the details so you don't accidentally solve for the wrong thing and get the problem wrong. Again, if you guys have questions at all, you can unmute yourself or you could type it in the chat, whatever works best for you guys. All right. So if I look at my next one, it says that we have a flagpole that leans slightly, and it says that it leans such that it makes an 80-degree angle with the ground. So they're talking about this is the ground, and here's the flagpole, and it creates this 80-degree angle right here. The shadow of the flagpole is 10 feet, so they even labeled it for you. This is great. When the sun has an unknown angle of elevation. So when we talk about an angle of elevation, we're talking about, so if this is my sun up here, we're talking about angle of elevation goes from when I look straight out and then I look up to something and I change that my direction from looking straight to looking up. Angle of elevation means I'm tilting my head up. Angle of depression, that's the other thing that we've taught, that you've probably learned. That's from when you're looking straight and you angle your head down. That's an angle of depression. Angle of elevation is looking straight out and you look up. You're elevating your head. All right, it says, how could the angle of elevation, the sun X, be determined? So how can I figure out this value? How can I figure out this angle right here? All right, so I look here and I go, what am I given? So I know this is going to be my side T, this is my side V, this would be my angle U. Don't know my angle U. So I'm going to put my box of information together. Also, something I want to point out, because you'll see this in some of the problems, this piece right here, this segment, so some of them will say find segment TV. So you might be asked to find segment TV. Well, that's just the same thing as finding your side view. So it depends on how the problem might be worded, but you can label it however you want. If you don't like looking at it like this, then just know that you're solving for that side view. So again, I'm going to have T, U, V, my side T, U, and V. So my angle T, don't know. My angle U is 80 degrees. I'm looking for my V, that's the X. I know that my side T is 10. I don't know my side U, and my side V is 15. Okay, so what am I looking for? I'm asked to find X, right? So we want X. That's my angle V. So if I want my angle V, then I have cosine of V is equal to U squared plus T squared minus V squared all over 2UT. So I plug in all of the pieces I know. I go, okay, cosine of V is equal to, uh-oh, do I know what this is? I don't know what U is. That means that I don't know V and I don't know U, so I have two unknowns. I can't solve an equation with two unknowns. Does this mean I can't solve the problem? No, I could still solve it. I just have to do an extra step because I know my T, I know my V, so the only thing I don't know here is my U, but I can solve for that U. So I can't just go and solve this right away. What I need to do first is I need to solve for U. Some of you guys say, well, do I have enough information to solve for U? Well, yeah, I have my two other unknown sides and I know the angle that corresponds with it. And the formula for my law of cosine says that U squared is equal to T squared plus V squared minus 2TV cosine of my angle U. And I know my T, V, and my angle U. So I can solve for my side U. So it's going to be 10 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 10 times my 15 times my cosine of 80 degrees. So U squared is equal to, remember that you want to put this piece into the calculator and this whole piece into the calculator. They're two separate pieces. So I usually go like this. I will do my, I know it's hard to see. The light makes it, it's gonna be too much. Might be better, I don't know. I know it's hard to see either way. Okay, so it's gonna be 10 squared plus my 15 squared, and I get 325. So it's going to be 325. And then it's going to be minus, and I'm going to do 2 times, let me see if you guys can see this. So it's going to be 2 times my 10 times my 15 times my cosine of 80. So again, make sure your calculator's in degrees. And there we go, we get 52.1. So this is going to be minus 52.1. So 325 minus my 52.1 is going to be, u squared is going to be 272.9. Remember, we want just u, so take the square root. I take the square root of that value, and it tells me that u is going to be approximately 16.5. So I now found that value of u. So this one was a little bit trickier because I had to find a piece first before I can solve what they're actually looking for, before I can evaluate what that x is. So I go ahead and I fill in all the pieces now. So it's 16.5 plus squared plus 10 squared minus my 15 squared all over 2 times 16.5 times my 10. All right, so we could go ahead, we can easily solve this all the way out. For this one, it just says how could the angle of elevation be determined? So when you go to look for this, they're not solving it all the way out. It's going to be something written like that. If I want to solve it all the way out, of course we can. I'm just not going to spend the time to do that. But this was a tricky one, so make sure that you know what you're looking for. So this, we had to solve for you because otherwise I couldn't evaluate this if I had 2 unknowns. Any questions on that? So I could solve it all the way out. Would you guys like me to finish solving it? Or are you guys okay with this piece from here? You can just put it in the chat or whatever. If anyone wants me to solve it out, I will go ahead and do so. If you guys don't care, then I'll keep moving along. Okay. All right, then I'm going to keep moving along. This next problem's tricky because it kind of looks ugly. But don't let it intimidate you. This is stuff that's the same type of idea. The other thing with tricky with this is that we use those ideas of bearings where we go northeast an amount. So a ship heads due north for X miles. So we have a ship. Here's my boat. But my ship's a sailboat. You guys get the idea. So this boat's going to go north for some X miles, then turns 25 degrees east of north. So remember, north, east, southwest. So I'm going to go from my north and I'm going to go 25 degrees to the east. So I'm going to go from here and I'm going to go east 25 degrees. So it's talking about this direction. It's actually talking about it up here, but you'd kind of go from wherever the boat is. So I'm just going to kind of draw it in, I guess space-wise. Let me just shift this down a little bit so you guys get a better visual. So I'm going to go X, and then I'm going to go, this is like it's continuing straight, but I want to go northeast now, 25 degrees. That's probably a better picture for you guys. So northeast and travels for another y miles. I don't know how far this has gone, but it traveled for another y miles. Which expression represents the distance the ship is from the original spot? So I want to know, okay, well, so it went X miles north, then it went northeast 25 degrees, y miles. Where is this boat from where it originally started? How far away are we from where we originally started? So I can label this as my side Z if I want, just something different. So I want to know, well, what is this distance of Z? How far am I? If I end up here, how far am I from where I originally started? So I'm just going to call that Z. Remember that if I want to solve for my side Z, Z squared is going to be equal to X squared plus Y squared minus 2XY cosine of z. Okay, so I look over here, they don't have a z in there. Those are things that I need to figure out. And look, they have values for this angle. So they're telling me that they know what this angle z is. How can they figure out what that angle is? Well, that's because if I know that this is 25 degrees and these two pieces together, what we call supplementary, what do they form when I add those two angles together? They form a straight line. They're supplementary, so they have to add to 180. Then this angle Z right here, this angle is going to be 180 minus my 25, so it's going to be 155 degrees. So this angle right there is 155 degrees. Now be careful, because it says 25 degrees in the problem and we have 25 degrees here, you guys really like to use the idea of 25 degrees and that's not correct. So be careful. Also remember that these are your two unknown sides. We don't know what X and Y are. They're just variables. So here's what I do know. That side Z that we just called it Z, whatever you want, it could have been a Q, could have been a happy face. We're just using it as a placeholder, would be equal to that X squared plus Y squared minus 2XY cosine. And now I know that this angle across from the side we're looking for is 155 degrees. But look, these don't match any of these. That's because this is still squared. So we would have to take the square root. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So that missing side is the square root of x squared plus y squared minus 2xy cosine of 155 degrees. And when I look here, I match it up with this one right here. Some of you guys go, but wait a second. Why are these still under the square root? Because they're perfect squares. This cannot be simplified like this, because it's connected to this addition sign. So if I had something like the square root of x squared, y squared, that can be simplified where you're multiplying, where they're individual pieces. When they're multiplied, that simplifies to xy. When you're adding, you can't break them apart. They're all stuck together. Just like when we work with our rational expressions, the fractions with our x and y's, and we're adding variables, you can't break them apart if they're connected to a plus or minus. So it does not work like that. In order to pull it out, if it was multiplication, then you could have pulled them out from under the radical, but not when you're adding the two. So be careful, because that's a common mistake. Moving on. Again, have any questions? Please let me know. If I go too fast, let me know. All righty. Okay, so what is the length of the third side of the triangle below? Again, we know it's going to be law of cosines, but I also have a side angle side, which tells me I'm going to use my law of cosines, or I could go ahead and set up my table of information, and I would see I wouldn't have a full set. So a couple different ways to look at it. Again, I like to label my triangle just because then I know, like when I'm using my formula, what to plug in. So I'm just going to call this triangle A, B, C, and this would be my side B, my side C, and my side A. So it says, what is the length of the third side? Which means we're looking for this side right here. I know these two, so we're looking for my A. So I know that A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of A. I plug in all my information. A squared is equal to 27 squared plus 31 squared minus 2 times 27 times 31 times cosine of 75 degrees. So my A squared is equal to, again, I like to do these two pieces. I do these two together, and then I do all this together with my minus in between. So I go to my wonderful calculator, and I'm going to do 27 squared plus 31 squared, and I get my 1690, and I do 2 times 27 times 31 times my cosine of 75 is going to be 433.5 0.3. And then I subtract those and I get a squared is equal to 1,256.7. Remember that you want to take the square root of both sides. So I go to my calculator, I take the square root of that value, and I get that A is going to be approximate. And notice everything's rounded to the tenths. So it's going to be 35.5 millimeters. And there's my answer. So you only needed to do one step for this to solve for that missing side. You only need to solve for what they're asking for. You don't have to solve for everything. All right, and my very last one. So this says that 4 students drew 4 different triangles. So here are the 4 different triangles, and these are the students that drew them. The question is, which triangle can be solved using only the law of cosines? So when I look here, if you recall, if I'm going to use my law of cosines, that works for triangles that are going to be a side, 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 or a side, angle, side. And just to have a review, if we were looking for law of sines, the triangles would be our angle, angle, side, angle, side, angle, and of course our SSAs. These are the ones that are a pain in our SSA because that's the ambiguous case where it can have more than one possible triangle. So just by knowing the types of triangles, we could figure out which one. So this is asking for only the law of cosines. So if I'm going to use law of sines or law of cosines, notice I need to have 3 pieces of the triangle. You need to have at least 3 pieces of the triangle. So when I look at this first one, I'm given a side and an angle, but that's not enough information. I can't solve for any of the missing pieces because I need to have at least 3 pieces of the triangle, and I only have 2. So it's definitely not going to be a law of cosine. And look here, this is an angle, and a side. So an angle, angle, side. Can I use my law of cosines? No, no. This would actually be a law of sines. Angle, angle, side. Looking here, I have an angle, angle, and an angle. That doesn't match either one of them. So it's definitely not my law of cosines that we're looking for. So this is not going to be law of cosines either. And if I look here, this is a side, and a side. So side, side, side. That is a law of cosines. If I have all 3 sides, I can use law of cosines. So this is the answer we're looking for. Is Saki's triangle is the correct answer. So this was our winner. That one we can use our law of cosines. So this one we could have used law of sines if we're asked to. These 2 we could not solve with that given information. So we could not solve with the given information for these 2. Law of sines, not what it asked for, law of cosines. And that's all I have for you guys today. So hopefully you guys are starting to feel more comfortable with these. And if you are, that will definitely make this next sections a lot easier for you to work with because it's basically reviewing these first 2 sections. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can use Remind, you can email me, whatever you guys need, know that I'm here to help you guys. And if you guys don't have any questions, then I will see you guys tomorrow. And I hope you guys have a fabulous day. Bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you.